Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Signal with Snorlax. Today's titled Markets Are at a Crossroads, What to Watch into Christmas. I think that's it's a very applicable way of viewing this market right now, right? I mean, we've kind of had this duality between crypto and obviously equities. We've been waiting. All right, who's lying, right? Is it Bitcoin and crypto selling off that's lying and we're about to go higher? Is it equities lying with the strength and about to go lower? We're going to talk about it on today's episode. But I do have some things I want to talk about today, guys, because for the last few months, really since I think mid to late September, I have been banging the bear drum like as loudly as probably anybody on CT. I think that I've been saying we're going to see lower prices. Honestly, I've been kind of expecting a market crash, right? I wouldn't say that like we crashed necessarily. I know altcoins crashed on 10/10, so I'll kind of treat that as its own thing. We did end up seeing the largest liquidation event in crypto history, so that did happen kind of as I expected. But the nature of this Bitcoin sell-off, I'll admit, it surprised me. I kind of thought that we would do the whole thing in one go. So far, it has not been the case. So I wanted to kind of take today to talk to you guys about how I'm viewing the market right now. And in a way, it kind of still is this duality between crypto and equities. But I think I'm beginning to see some signs for some cautious optimism here, actually. I don't quite have as firm of a grasp on what that would mean for crypto, but I do think when we're talking about equity markets, I feel pretty confident with what I'm seeing over there to be able to, extrapolate where I think price can go next. But, on the topic of Bitcoin, I obviously I've already kind of touched on it. It's the chart that's up on the screen right now. We've pulled back substantially. I did think the pullback would be much larger than it was. We have not seen that, right? At least not yet. Maybe it's going to be more of a stair step down. I continue to reject the idea that we are going to replicate some version of 2022. That has just never really been something that I have agreed with, because we look at previous cycles for crypto. How often do we realistically play out exactly the same? In 2021, everybody was looking for a blow off, melt up top. It didn't happen, right? It was a rounded top, and everybody who thought we were getting a blow off top got absolutely smoked. And this cycle, I think a lot of people are expecting like this rounded top to form in the same way with 2022. What if we go back to tradition, right? What if Bitcoin kind of returns to these blow off tops that we've had in previous cycles? I don't know. But what I will say, and here's, I think, the first like really important point that I'm going to mention on this video, we are seeing liquidity re-enter the market. One of the primary drivers behind my bearishness over the last few months was that liquidity had quietly been leaving the market. You could see this reflected most obviously through crypto. It started with that 10/10 crash where we realized, all right, liquidity is actually not in the building. It actually left a long time ago. But we also saw this, I think, with the steady rise of the VIX. We saw it with specific small caps showing small caps that were leading the market finally showing weakness and pulling back. And I think that the way that not only these assets have responded, but also our visualization for market liquidity, which I'll touch on as well in this video, there are some signs that the winds of change could be shifting. And obviously we want to make sure that we're on the right side of that if that reversal is coming. A lot of consensus around a bear market right now, which, as somebody who has been bearish, I like to see that, right? I like to see my viewpoints become consensus, but at the same time, I don't like to see that become consensus, because the market rarely moves, at least not. I guess that's kind of like not necessarily true, but I know that it's common sentiment that when everybody's kind of all in the same boat, the market's probably not going to move in that direction. And I don't know if that's entirely true, but I do think, at least locally speaking, we've seen a lot of people enter the bear camp. And I think they're right to have entered the bear camp, right? I mean, every treasury company that bought Bitcoin is basically underwater. MicroStrategy is down basically 70%. You have exchanges like Coinbase and BNB, and I would even extend that. out to things like ETH and Solana that really don't look that strong. So why do I think we can go higher? Well, I guess I'll just go ahead and get right into it, man. I mean, I think that the strength of U.S. equities has to be respected. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I've almost felt like the way people have been parroting that was very similar to what we've seen at previous tops, because we've seen that at 2022. We've seen that multiple times throughout the cycle here, and here, where crypto showed weakness before equities really pulled back at all. And then equities caught up, often in one candle, as we've seen over the last like 16 months. But equities haven't budged yet. And I think that the picture is a little bit different now, because I think equities have had every opportunity realistically to catch up to crypto. So I'm going to give bears a window here. You have until quad witching, which is about 2 weeks from tomorrow. It's the 19th of December. Lots of options will expire. And I think as well, we often see quite a bit of volatility around these dates. If the market has not nuked by then I do not think that this is a case of crypto leading equities. I think it's probably just, okay, crypto got way out in front of its skis. 10-10 punished people. We saw a sell-off probably from people who were selling majors to fund holes in their balance sheet of altcoins that they had to sell or had to buy back, whatever you want to say, about the results of 10-10. And yeah, equities would, at that point, I would imagine, drag crypto higher. I'm a lot less certain about the path that crypto is going to take from here. Let me be clear. I'm still not really expecting a V recovery. I actually think it could be quite choppy for crypto as we move up. But as I look at equities, man, I mean, the strength has to be respected, not just especially at the index level, but when we look at individual names like Google, gig ascending. I think Tesla, which originally looked quite weak up here, this actually looks pretty good to me now. I've been kind of back and forth about what I thought about this chart. Is Tesla overvalued? Michael Burry thinks so. And yeah, it definitely is overvalued. Come on, it's an electric car company that's completely fallen out of favor, but that doesn't matter. All that matters is liquidity and flows. And right now, flows are coming into the market. When we look at these Mag 7 charts, what is leading the market higher? It's all of these assets. And I really think all of the Mag 7, for the most part, look very strong. You've gotten a huge reaction from market leaders in the past, such as Meta from this dip. Google obviously hasn't dipped at all. And I really don't know necessarily what the bear case for this asset is, other than the fact that it's gone up a lot. In the same way that we're like with crypto, a lot of people are saying, a lot of people are like, the bull case is that the asset has gone down so much that it has to be bullish, right? I think both of these lines of thinking are kind of flawed inherently, but you have to respect what is driving indexes higher. And right now it is the Mag 7. We had a ton of breadth over the summer, and it shrunk substantially. And I think that's actually bullish thing for equity markets that are attempting now to consolidate above all-time highs. I'll be honest, I really can't recall any topping structures that look quite like this, unless you're trying to compare this regime here in equities to the previous regime that we saw with Trump, right? You had 3 massive volatility moves down. Maybe we are loading that 2020 style event. I don't really think that's the case, though. I don't think that's the case. And if you are, you're probably going to see it here very, very soon into the end of the year, but really probably sooner than that. Now, if they cannot send equity markets lower, I think this is setting up potentially for a melt up. And if you've been watching Signal with Snorlax for longer than the last like 2 or 3 months, I have talked about this concept before. I have, about how the U.S. stock market largely does look like a much larger parabola is forming. How can I look at this chart and say that's not a parabola? It is parabolic, right? You're absolutely already seeing a parabola for U.S. equities. I'm here to tell you it could absolutely get even more extreme here in the next year if equities break up from this consolidation. I don't think you're topping. I'm not talking about a top at like 7,000 or 8,000. I think we're talking about a top that actually goes much, much higher than that. Um, and so I guess I should talk about why the sudden change of heart, right? You've been so bearish, Tommy. But I've also told you guys you can see the clearest representation visually for market liquidity when we look at VIX futures. What do you notice about this chart now versus the last few times that we've looked at it? Really look at it from the standpoint, what has happened since the government reopened? And I remember talking about this back in November. You know, if the government reopens, we're going to see more liquidity. I still thought the market could nuke, but it looks to me like that liquidity has begun to enter the market on a much more tangible level. And let's look at the context. If we're breaking down from this in the same way that you don't want to fade a range breakdown on something like Bitcoin, because it's going to go so much deeper than you think. Everybody thought Bitcoin would buy. I mean, so many people, if we do recover, so many people who told you to buy at like 115K are going to be taking victory laps, right? Which will be funny in itself. And we're just going to kind of have to ignore it, I think. But, you know, in the same way that people told you to buy like 115K when Bitcoin traded down there, we broke down from a range. Bitcoin went all the way down to almost a 7 handle, right? So these breakdowns, these breakouts from long-term ranges always lead to huge moves. And if this is a sign that liquidity is breaking, it's actually, like, if you're looking at it from a liquidity standpoint, inverted. But if this is a sign that VIX futures are breaking down from a level that they have effectively consolidated at for like 18 to 20 months, we're about to have a huge move up on indices, because what this would imply is that vol is about to really break down, I think, below this level, but that liquidity is going to come into the market quite aggressively. And that has been the case demonstratably since the government shutdown ended. So we have to respect that. Like I said, I'm still giving bears a window here for probably another 2 weeks. I think after that, though, there's really just not as much to stand on. If you're going to see liquidity coming into the market, if you're going to see the Mag 7 remain resilient, we could see some pretty crazy things over the next like 6 to 12 months. Just putting that out there. So, I mean, that's what I see right now, man. I know I've been like very, very firmly in the bear camp. So for me to pivot is maybe a little shocking for people who have watched this show weekly. And let me be clear, I won't even say that I've fully pivoted yet, but I do see, I think, some early signals of reversal. And yeah, I hope that holds more weight, since I haven't been trying to call bottom the whole way down like a lot of people on crypto Twitter and everywhere else. But I mean, let's look at our former market leaders. How have they responded to new liquidity coming into the market? How have our visual representation of liquidity performed? VIX futures are breaking down. Robinhood, which is obviously like our small cap star, you know, maybe it continues to range up here, but you've gotten this huge reaction off the low. I think something like Rivian, which has been unable to break out for years, looks so much like Robinhood did, honestly, at these lows down here. I'm sure you could fit a fractal on there if you want, but I mean, to me, Rivian kind of looks like it's about to make a move higher, which is probably good for EVs in general. And I would also say that lends favorably to the bull case for something like Tesla. I think you're making major breakthroughs in some. We've heard a lot about Google. Here's a prediction for you guys. I think we're going to hear a lot about Apple next year. Everybody is talking about Google because they've got a huge moat of cash, because Gemini has, I won't say that they've definitively taken the lead in the AI race, but they've made a huge push forward. I think you're going to hear a lot about Apple in 2026. A lot of people have been viewing this as like a growth stock that isn't growing. And I think that opinion is going to change, because somebody with much more knowledge about this technology than I have personally told me probably in like the middle of last year, Apple has actually made some huge strides forward as far as like their own their own company-wide innovation. and what they could potentially offer people going forward, specifically with like satellite technology. So they'll be a competitor to a Starlink, for example, as well, I believe. But yeah, I think you're going to hear a lot more about Apple going forward. Really, just the Mag 7 entirely looks very, very strong to me. And if this is going to continue, right, if this isn't some fake out, VIX futures are going lower, which is a sign that liquidity is going to rise, which probably also means that you're going to see yields rise. Probably not quite as aggressively as I was kind of prospecting over the last few months, but you probably will see long end yields go higher, even if they cut rates, because you're just implying that there's going to be more growth. So you're going to need like a higher future demand for more rates. At least that's how I view it. But that's, I mean, I really think equities look so strong that they're, at this point, it is fairly likely they're going to drag the market higher unless you have some completely unforeseen event occur into the end of this year. So obviously, where does that leave crypto, which, you know, honestly, these structures still do not look very good to me. They don't. Sol looks absolutely horrendous. You are at range lows. I think that must be admitted. But you have market leaders like Hyperliquid. Like, this is not a structure I would really expect the market to bottom out of. It's not impossible, but this really doesn't look that good to me. ETH still really does not look that good to me. But I could change my opinion on that, right? I could see myself changing my view on that, assuming that we're not going to continue to slide too much deeper. This is why when I say, and I also tweeted this out probably like an hour before I started recording this video, but the path for Bitcoin and crypto is a lot murkier for me because we did see so much more like structural weakness within these assets. But I think at this point, it's becoming a liquidity and equities issue. And those are both, to me, telling me that the cyclical highs are probably not in. I'm still not like a big Nvidia bull. I could be convinced in the future. Like, this still looks fairly weak, and I think when we're talking about things that could potentially drive index level downside, Nvidia is one of those assets. But Nvidia could just be consolidating up here before another move higher. As well. So we'll keep an eye on something like Nvidia. I absolutely think that you need to watch that. And crypto as well, because it is funny, you know, here I am kind of talking about the possibility that the market could not only reverse from here, specifically equities, right? Crypto, murkier, but potentially melt up as well. And we don't know quite what Bitcoin and crypto would do, but they are risk on assets and they do benefit from market liquidity. So we'll have to see how it all pans out. We'll have to see how it all pans out. When I look at this, we technically have not broken market structure. This is an absolutely hideous structure, in my opinion. And we could still take out these lows before we end up moving higher on Bitcoin and crypto. But I am beginning to graduate out of the camp that we have to see some sort of market crash here, and I think we could potentially even see some really nice upside going forward. But I know it's just gonna be sentiment from everybody, I think, until it's actually disproven that we're probably replicating what we saw in 2022. We have to bounce. We have to form some sort of range. We'll see if we look back on that and it's almost kind of like the market is conditioning people into shorting a shoulder and the market goes higher. I'll say this, like, I think if you put back on side the treasury companies that entered the market in here, the bottom's probably in. I think the market will be baiting you into shorting a shoulder up here if we're putting these people back on side. So we'll see what we get. I've said it 3 times already, but I think the route higher for crypto and Bitcoin is a little bit harder for me to discern, specifically some of these altcoins. It's not impossible. Equities just look so strong, and not in a way, not in like a deceptive way. Not in a deceptive way, because when we look back at previous equity market tops, like, to me, this felt really weak. This felt really weak. And this also felt really weak. This doesn't really feel as much like weakness to me. This actually feels more like strength. And when we're talking about, this will be the last thing I mention in this video, by the way, but, we're talking about a parabola that's getting steeper. The odds of you having price action that mimics something like this is decreasing as we go higher, because pullbacks in a parabola become more and more steep. So if we break up from this consolidation on equities, chase might be on. The chase might be on, man. So the markets are at a crossroads. We don't want to completely discount the bearish thesis right now, but I think the longer this goes without seeing that downside play out, the more it looks like bears might have potentially missed their opportunity to send this lower for a while, and that equities will drag everything higher, specifically the Mag 7. But we'll see what happens, guys. I think it's a really, really interesting next 2 or 3 weeks. I do, because I don't want to get too definitively in one camp versus the other. But I'm seeing some, I think, cracks in the bearish thesis for probably the first time in like 2 or 3 months. Liquidity is no longer draining from this market. It's actually coming in, which is usually not indicative of tops in equities. It's more so, I mean, crypto and Bitcoin will front run liquidity topping much sooner than equities, but equities usually will trade very correlated with market liquidity. So yeah, we'll see how we trade into Christmas, but I hope this was actionable. I hope this was more positive than the last few videos that I've had probably over the last month. Ultimately, we're just going to have to see what the market's going to do. But yeah, I'm feeling cautiously, I think that's the key word, cautiously optimistic here, that the market could actually begin to move higher from here. And we'll see where Bitcoin and ETH and crypto fit within that mixture. But thanks for tuning in to Signal with Snorlax, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stream today. I ended up going a little bit longer than I thought I would, but I hope you find the video to be insightful nevertheless. Thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you have not already done that. But until next time, thanks again, and stay safe.